In this module, we will discuss the OmniAccess Stellar Remote Access Point feature. At the end of this module, you'll be able to identify the role and advantages of the Remote Access Point feature, list all the equipment that is required for deployment, and summarize the configuration steps. In network deployments, it's common to have a central site and remote sites. The purpose of the Remote Access Point feature is to extend the corporate network to the remote locations. Two examples include remote sites that must connect to the corporate network to check inventory, and temporary booths at events like forums or exhibitions. Activating the Remote Access Point feature on OmniAccess Stellar Access Points varies according to the type of OmniVista Cirrus account you have. OmniVista Cirrus is a cloud-based network management platform used to manage and monitor OmniSwitches and Stellar Access Points deployed in customers' infrastructure. If the company uses OmniVista Cirrus to configure its network equipment with a premium account, you will need a VPN server provided by AOE installed at the company premises and Stellar Access Point installed at the remote site. OmniVista 2500 NMS offers the same managing and monitoring of OmniSwitches and Stellar Access Point functionality as OmniVista Cirrus, but it's installed at the customer premise instead of being deployed in the cloud. If the company uses OmniVista 2500 NMS to configure its network equipment, in addition to the OmniVista server, you will need an OmniVista Cirrus and Freemium account, a VPN server provided by AOE installed at the company premises, and Stellar Access Point installed at the remote site. In this section, we will discuss the commissioning steps of a remote access point from OmniVista Cirrus with the Premium account. The following steps are required when configuring a Stellar Access Point to act as a remote access point from OmniVista Cirrus with the Premium account. The topology is divided into three areas: the remote site, where an access point is connected to a router, this router being connected to the internet; the main site, where the VPN server is deployed and connected to the corporate network; and the OmniVista Cirrus host in the cloud. Before configuring the remote access point, the network administrator needs to configure several items on each server. On OmniVista Cirrus, fill in the MAC address of the remote access point and information to be sent to the remote access point, including VPN server public IP address and the IP address that the access point will use as a VPN client. This information allows the access point to connect to the VPN server at the appropriate time. The administrator will also enter the SSID the access point will broadcast, the authentication strategies that we'll use, and the radio frequency parameters. On the VPN server, configure the public IP address of the VPN server and its private IP address, with other information being filled in later steps. There is no information to configure on the remote access points. Once booted, the Stellar Access Point automatically tries to reach the OmniVista Cirrus cloud platform. OmniVista Cirrus will recognize the Stellar Access Point by its MAC address. Note that the administrator must first enter the access point's MAC address information into OmniVista Cirrus database. OmniVista Cirrus then sends the access point an IP address, the VPN server's IP address, and all its configuration settings. Using the VPN server's IP address received in the previous step, the Stellar Access Point at the remote site connects to the VPN server and establishes a VPN tunnel. This tunnel carries the traffic of Wi-Fi clients that are connected to the remote access point. In addition to the VPN tunnel information, the access point receives their configuration in the same step. This allows the remote access point to broadcast reserved company SSIDs for employees at the remote site. Once connected to the SSID, the employee will be on the company's network with their data passing through the VPN tunnel created in Step 2. In this chapter, we will discuss the steps for deploying a remote access point with the OmniVista 2500 and OmniVista Cirrus Freemium account. The following steps are required when configuring a Stellar Access Point to act as a remote access point from OmniVista 2500 connecting to OmniVista Cirrus with a Freemium account. The topology is divided into three areas: the remote site, where the access point is connected to a router. This router is connected to the internet. the main site where two servers are going to be used, the VPN server and the OmniVista 2500 NMS, and the OmniVista Cirrus hosted in the cloud. Before configuring the remote access point, the network administrator needs to configure several items on each server. On OmniVista Cirrus, fill in the MAC address of the remote access point and set its mode to remote access point. Also enter the VPN server public IP address, the OmniVista 2500 server IP address, and the IP address of the access point we'll use as a VPN client. On the VPN server, the main information to be entered is the public IP and private IP address. On OmniVista 2500 server, the administrator should configure the SSID, authentication strategies, and radio frequency parameters the remote access point will use. There is no information to configure on the remote access point. Once booted, the Stellar access point connects to the OmniVista Cirrus cloud platform. OmniVista Cirrus will identify the Stellar access point by its MAC address. The administrator must first enter the MAC address of the remote access point in the OmniVista Cirrus database. OmniVista Cirrus then sends the Stellar access point, its mode of remote access point, an IP address, the VPN server IP address, and the OmniVista 2500 NMS server IP address. Using the VPN server's IP address received from the previous step, the Stellar access point at the remote site connects to the VPN server and establishes a VPN tunnel. The tunnel carries management traffic from OmniVista 2500 to the remote access point. Once the VPN tunnel is established, the Stellar access point uses OmniVista 2500's IP address, received from the OmniVista Cirrus, to connect to OmniVista 2500 server. OmniVista 2500 then sends its configuration to the remote access point through the VPN tunnel. Finally, the remote access point applies the configuration settings received from OmniVista 2500. The settings allow the access point to establish a second VPN tunnel from the remote access site and broadcast SSIDs reserved for the company's employees. This second VPN tunnel is used to carry traffic from clients connected to the remote access point. In this chapter, we will review the summary of the configuration steps to deploy the remote access point. These are the configuration steps to configure a remote access point when OmniVista Cirrus has a premium account used. These are the configuration steps to configure a remote access point when OmniVista Cirrus with a freemium account and OmniVista 2500 are used.